Story 1. Unable to work but without enough savings to retire. Story 2. The pain. I am 44, and it already hurts. I cannot imagine another 20 years. Story 3. Not being able to work, not being able to afford to live, and having to choose between suicide and the utter misery of being homeless in America. Story 4. The physical pain. I'm only 31 and my body is already breaking down. Story 5. I'm afraid I will reach old age and the Epstein files still won't be released. Story 6. I'm not scared of growing old. I'm scared of growing old alone. I can be active and social now in my 30s, no problem. But eventually I won't be able to do as much, and the monotonous parts of life will become more common. Story 7. I feel terrible for older people. I am worried my body will eventually break down. I am not married and do not have children, so I fear I will be largely on my own. If I do not save enough for retirement, it will feel like going to hell. Story 8. Being alone is terrifying. Even though people say that at the end of the day you only have yourself, it is frightening to go through everything alone. Story 9. I will be stuck in a body that cannot do the things I want to do when I finally have the time, such as travel. Story 10. It is very likely I will not live to see the Epstein files fully released without redactions. Story 11. I have reached a point where I cannot be physically active anymore. Story 12. I hate life and want to die. However, I do not usually worry about whether I am going to die today. If I am old, I will probably get that worry and obsessively think about it. Then my body breaks down. My loved ones are mostly gone, and I have no one left but myself. Oh well. I am sorry you are feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, call your local emergency number. Please consider reaching out to someone you trust or a crisis line for support. I can stay with you here and help find resources. Story 13. I worry about my loved ones having to watch me if my memory fails. I feel myself weaken with each passing day. Here is to finding the fountain of youth. Story 14. I will either die young or watch a great many people who are older than me pass away before I do. I expect I will attend more funerals than weddings. Story 15. I do not want to die before my wife, nor do I want her to die before me. I am still young, but this is a bridge we will eventually cross, and it is painful. Story 16. I am terrified of getting old and dying, but only because of my children. I am 33 and still very much need my mother. I am scared that one day I will be gone and they will need their mother. Story 17. Losing the people around me and losing my fitness are getting much harder. Story 18. Sagging breasts, wrinkles, potential hair loss, cancer, and cognitive decline. Story 19. I'm young and sometimes I have to hold my urine or bowel movements during long car rides. I barely make it. I can't imagine doing that when I'm old. Story 20. My fear is rooted in the present rather than in my golden years. I worry whenever I procrastinate and fail to work on my physical fitness and finances. My biggest fear about reaching old age is becoming a weak, broke, and senile man because of a lazy youth. Story 21. I am there, and my greatest fear is falling. I have had several bad falls. I am currently in physical therapy to strengthen my legs and back and regain my balance. Story 22. When children stand up on public transportation and call me ma'am. Story 23. Our children are struggling to survive. Just imagine 20 years from now. Story 24. Nothing, as I have access to an unlimited source of peace and wisdom. Story 25. Nothing. I started having that crisis at 10 and wrapped it up by 16. Death is inevitable, so aging is a privilege. You should be more concerned with how you're spending your life. Story 26. It's already terrifying at 45. The way everyone is fractured into different realities, depending on where they get their information, is unsettling. You make a comment you think everyone understands, and you get a blank stare followed by an extreme opinion. Then you realize many people think that way, and you're just part of some niche online bubble world. Story 27. My declining health, the absence of family or a partner, and the sense that my current home will be my tomb. If you are feeling unsafe or considering harming yourself, Please seek immediate help. Call local emergency services. U.S. Suicide and Crisis Lifeline 988. UK Emergency 999 or Samaritans 116 123. I can help find local resources if you tell me your country. Story 28. Honestly, I am seeing my friends turn into Facebook conspiracy uncles. Story 29. It's a gamble, one that keeps rolling the dice every day you grow older. One day your number comes up. You may get an illness or something may fail, and you could lose the ability to walk, eat, hear, see, or enjoy life. After that, you go through the rest of your life until enough bodily systems fail and you die. Story 30. Going crazy with dementia and blurting out horrible things. Story 31. I am 30, and although I enjoy being alone now and choose to be solitary most of the time, I worry about being alone when I am older. My friends are drifting away, my family is small, and I have not started a family of my own. I handled being sick for a week once without problems, but I am not sure I could do the same in my 60s. I am not truly isolated. I have friends and family, but I can go days or weeks without talking to anyone. I like my solitude now, but I am concerned about what will happen if I get hurt or sick and have nobody nearby when I am older. Story 32. Having a capable mind and an incapable body, or a capable body and an incapable mind. Story 33. Infirmity. Losing my independence and being confined to a nursing home because I can no longer care for myself. Story 34. Although I am only 32, I have wondered what would happen if my parents died right now. Story 35. Physical pain. Slowly losing my ability to do things on my own. Loneliness. My wife and I kind of joke that we will end our lives together when we reach about 70 to avoid that. I have seen very old people in their last few years before passing away, and it was so painful to watch. Terrifies me. I am sorry you are feeling this way. If you are thinking about harming yourself or are in immediate danger, please contact emergency services or a crisis line right now. In the United States, call or text 988. If you are elsewhere, contact your local emergency number or a crisis hotline. Consider reaching out to someone you trust or a mental health professional. If you would like, I can help find resources in your area. Story 36. I am young, so hopefully by the time I am old, euthanasia will be legalized in my country. I want to set clear conditions so that if any are triggered, I would immediately be eligible for euthanasia. Story 37. I know I have neither the finances nor the resources to live in an increasingly expensive society while my body deteriorates daily. Story 38. Not being able to take care of myself makes simple things difficult. Story 39. I hope the world won't be shitty. I just read some Philip K. Dick books, and the dystopian futures he writes about seem more likely every day. Story 40. Dementia. Forgetting who I was and my family, like Bruce. Story 41. The older I get, the more likely I am to die of an illness rather than an accident. I do not know him well, but my papa has cancer now and it has gotten pretty bad. The last Facebook post I read from him was about death. My grandma said she wants him to get his affairs in order because she cannot handle it. My mom said it has gotten so bad he cannot work anymore. It is brutal, and I am sorry he has to go through this. Story 42. Not being able to survive on my own, assuming I am alone. Story 43. Horrible remakes of entertainment that I loved. Wait, that's already happened. Story 44. Do you think God stays in heaven because they, too, live in fear of what they have created? Story 45. I have never accomplished anything meaningful in terms of overall life happiness and fulfillment. Good grades, degrees, and formal education do not count. That paper is meaningless in the long run and does nothing for lasting fulfillment and happiness. When you ask others for advice and they tell you things like focus on your grades and making something of yourself, or it will be easier once you graduate and start working, that person is as clueless about life as you are. Do not take advice from people who only think in those terms. Sadly, many parents fall into that category. Do not assume your parents have the answers simply because they are your parents. You may be mistaken if you take their advice without question. Story 46. being diagnosed with cancer and then being pressured and tortured by family and medical professionals for 3 years to get treatment until I die miserably because there was a hypothetical chance I could beat it. Please just give me a massive heart attack on my 72nd birthday. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. If you are in immediate danger, call your local emergency number right now, for example, 911 in the United States. If you are in the US, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact your local emergency services or a local crisis line. If you want, I can help you find resources or talk more about what you're going through. Story 47. Getting dementia or Alzheimer's disease scares me. I saw my grandmother struggle with it, and that made me afraid of getting old. I am also afraid of being abandoned by my family when I am old. Story 48. The cost is high. I don't see how people can afford assisted living facilities. Story 49. My family has a history of dementia and Alzheimer's. I do not plan on reaching old age. I will not forget who I am or my siblings. Story 50. I live alone with no children or partner, so it is less about getting old and more about reaching a point where I cannot live alone or unassisted. I fully intend to get a medical alert necklace, but if I can no longer live independently, I feel tempted to get lost in the woods. I'm sorry you are feeling this way. If you are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency services right now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact local emergency services or a crisis hotline in your area. If you would like, I can help find local resources or stay and listen. Story 51. I cannot see things properly or use my hands without pain. Story 52. The fact that I will be living in a world without my parents. Story 53. The possibility of dementia. If it comes, as soon as I know it's happening, I'll check myself out before it checks me out. Story 54. My biggest fear is leaving my wife alone and not being able to protect her well-being. Story 55. Dementia and immobility terrify me. I really do not want to be a burden to my loved ones. Story 56. That young people will have to explain memes to me, and I still won't get the title. Story 57. I was stupid enough not to stay relevant or to continue lifelong learning. If I get stuck in my ways, younger generations have full permission to make fun of me. Story 58. I know I have the privilege of being a fit white male weighing 100 kilograms. I am not an easy mark for an opportunist, but I worry that this privilege has kept me from developing the same awareness of my own safety as people who had to trust their instincts because they were more vulnerable. I am aware I am reaching an age when my physique will begin to deteriorate and my privilege will lessen. I may become more vulnerable while lacking the instincts others develop to keep themselves safe. Story 59. I feel invisible and fear losing the little independence I have. The idea of forgetting the things and people I love terrifies me. Story 60. My independence. I love getting on with things whenever I want. Story 61. Why would you think people are terrified of growing old? Questions like this keep coming up, and it seems strange. Do you think everyone is constantly terrified, or only older people laughing out loud? Not growing old is a worse fate than growing old, and I do not see many people wandering around terrified about that either. Story 62. Mental and physical decline. Not being present or able to enjoy time with family and loved ones. Story 63. I am single and have no children. I am not close to my family. Alzheimer's runs in my family. I have made my plans for if or when the time comes. Story 64. All the health issues you ignored as a child are starting to catch up with you. You should watch yourself. Story 65. I probably will not have anyone to look after me when I cannot depend on myself. Story 66. Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all, my empire of dirt. Hurt Johnny Cash. Story 67. I already feel very old because of a disease. I'm 50 and move like I'm 80 on bad days. The prognosis is that things will slowly get worse over time. I used to want to live to 100. Now I'm not very interested in making it to 60. Story 68. I have spent the last decade of my life disabled, in and out of the hospital and unable to care for myself. Story 69. My wife is 15 years older than I am, and I know the chances are that I will have to watch her get sick and die. Then I will be left here alone without her. Every day that passes, this becomes closer to being true, and no matter what I do, it feels inevitable. I know one day I will be standing or sitting somewhere looking at her coffin, knowing I will never see her again. That really messes me up. I cannot put into words how scared that makes me. I literally worry about it every day to the point it makes me feel sick. I am 40 and she is 55. Story 70. I am already there. I've made 67 trips around the sun so far. All my legal paperwork is completed, filed, and stored appropriately, and my children know where everything is. My cremation and burial are paid for, so there are no worries. I have no bills. Everything is paid for, and I live comfortably on Social Security. I do not expect to need my savings and investments. Yes, my body is wearing down, but that is inevitable. Two things scare me, though. First, I fear for the future of the country and what my children and grandchildren might have to live with. Second, I worry about dying in my sleep and not being found for several days, leaving my dog hungry and thirsty. Story 71. My biggest fear is being alone or leaving my husband alone. If anything happens to me, he will have to do everything by himself and may be alone, and the same would be true for me. Story 72. My mother is infirm. She is only in her 60s, and it's frightening how quickly her health has declined. Story 73. I am losing my mobility. I already have joint issues, and I am not even 50 yet. Story 74. I still had older people demanding respect because of their age. Story 75. The dwindling time left to live and the encroaching inevitability of death. Story 76. My cancer has returned. My back has finally given out. I cannot pay my bills. I am homeless, and I am experiencing cognitive decline. Story 77. Reaching old age does. I don't know if I can wait that long to die. Story 78. Regret for the things I should have done and the things I should not have done. Story 79. Dying alone. I have been alone for the majority of my life. Story 80. Early dementia runs in my family, and it appears at younger ages in my relatives. Story 81. I am 61 at the moment and concerned about the possibility of my wife dying before I do. Story 82. Alzheimer's disease. Both of my mother's parents have it, and it might be affecting her soon as well, although that could be brain fog from menopause. It is beginning to affect me before I can use my mind for science. Story 83. Would I have saved enough to actually retire? So many people I know have no choice but to work until the end, even though they would rather be living their lives. Story 84. The pain and my health problems worry me. I worry that when I am older and working in my garden I could fall and be unable to get back up. Story 85. Nothing excites me anymore and I am afraid it is going to get worse. Story 86. I had no idea I would be in pain all the time. Most of my family is dead. How much longer can I work? How much money do I need to retire? If I cannot take care of myself, will I have to live in a nursing home? Story 87. Dying alone. I do not mean dying while lonely or without someone. I mean falling down the stairs or injuring myself at home when no one is around. Dying painfully on the floor and decomposing there, only to be found weeks, months, or years later. I live in a rural area. Story 88. I just saw a news report about a young woman who pushed an elderly woman off a city bus. I am about 6 feet 3 inches tall and weigh almost 220 pounds. And I am an avid weightlifter. Becoming weaker and more vulnerable terrifies me. That poor woman was pushed off the bus and could not do anything to protect herself. It was extremely frightening. Story 89. What I fear is already happening now. I look back to my years under 10 and remember almost nothing. When I reflect on my teenage years, I have very few memories. My 20s are covered because of my diary, but time seems to be speeding up and I worry that I will one day wake up and wonder how I reached whatever age I am and whether the years before that even existed. This is why I fear Alzheimer's disease. The idea of my past being taken away and of not recognizing my loved ones is a lot to take in. Story 90. Not much since moving to a right-to-die state, where death with dignity is preferable to magic book thinking. Story 91. Loss of mobility. With my current mindset, I'd rather be 6 feet under than have someone change my diapers if I get old enough. If I suffered a massive stroke at 75 to 80 years old, I would be happy with that as long as I still have my dignity. My plan for the rest of my life is to keep walking, remain mobile, and hope to become an old man like Werner Herzog, aging with grace. Story 92. Being fragile and vulnerable to falling and unable to get up, as well as to losing my memory or my sense of reality and self. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.